Let's go live now to the host of the Kenny Report, Chris Kenny. Chris, thanks so much for joining me on your program tonight. We've got a lot to get through. It's been a big week. I want to start with the Prime Minister's admission today that he could have done more and that he regrets it. Here's what Susan Lee had to say to that. Have a listen.
Today, we didn't see the Prime Minister take responsibility for the Bondi massacre. We didn't hear the Prime Minister say sorry. More could have been done, he said. Well, Prime Minister, more should have been done. More should have been done. And 2 years ago, Jewish Australians told you more needed to be done. And they told you what needed to be done to curb the rising tide of anti-Semitism.
Chris, what's your take on the admission?
Well, that's the very least he could admit to, Danica. This is the problem. He is culpable, the Prime Minister, because of the way he has failed to lead on this issue. Now, I think the political left, the political class, if you like, and the media and our law enforcement agencies have a lot to answer for, not just for the past 2 years, but for the past couple of decades, when it comes to the way they've failed to respond to the Islamist extremist threat. Time and time again, they've failed to respond adequately, but nobody has failed as spectacularly or with more warnings or by doing precisely the wrong thing than Anthony Albanese has since he's become Prime Minister, and particularly since October the 7th, 2023. He has been pleaded with. People have begged him. People have lobbied him. They've publicly demanded that he do more and take up action both to protect the Jewish Australian community, to protect law and order in this country, and to take on the scourge of Islamist extremism. People have done that privately and publicly, and he has monumentally failed to act, and now he's scurrying away. It is tragic because so many of us, as you know, Danica, have been talking about this and warning about this for so long, and what we see in response is 50-plus people shot at Bondi, 15 of them dead, a 10-year-old girl. I got to tell you, I find it so difficult to contain my anger over this because the government, and not just Albanese, of course, Penny Wong and Tony Burke and the rest of them, the government have been weak, absolutely weak, and sometimes for base and cynical political purposes because they basically see that there's 10 times as many Muslim votes for every 10 Muslim votes for every Jewish Australian vote, and they make that calculation for political purposes, and it's tragedy. It's a tragedy that's still unfolding. He should be at Bondi today. He should be fronting the media telling us that he can assure us there are no other terrorist plots. There won't be another massacre like this, but he can't do that and he won't do that.
No, he won't do that. Today's admission, it's a catastrophic failure. You're spot on. Let's talk about the ABC, Sarah Ferguson's interview last night with Josh Frydenberg, where she saved this gotcha moment, basically saying that his speech yesterday at the memorial was all for politics. What do you make of it?
Look, this betrays the absolute political bias and ideological bent of the ABC. It's complete insensitivity to these issues. It's complete denial about the problem of Islamist extremism. To see someone like Josh Frydenberg so visibly moved and so angry on behalf of his community, the Australian Jewish community, in the face of the biggest terrorist attack this country's ever seen, and to try and spit in his face and say that he's playing politics, trying to resurrect his political career, it is just sickening. It is absolutely sickening. But sadly, we've come to expect no better from the ABC. They are actually culpable as well for the way they have constantly engaged in jihad denialism for year after year after year. They've told us when Man Monis was holding 18 Australians hostage at the Lint Cafe in Sydney, they told us that, no, don't worry, it's not a terrorist act. They told us it was something else, just a madman. There's so many times we've been told, oh, it's not terrorism. In fact, they've attacked the Australian community by pretending there'd be the problem of a backlash against Muslim Australians. That's never happened. They can constantly give us this jihad denialism, as I call it. And so they are culpable as well. But the inhumanity of that reaction to Josh Frydenberg just shows the way that these hosts on the ABC, some of their leading figures, have a visceral hatred for Conservatives that actually goes beyond common decency to other human beings.
Yeah, it's that jihad denialism, and I know that you're particularly fired up about this, and we'll be reading more on your comments on this in the Australian newspaper, not to be missed. Chris Kenny, it's been good to have you on tonight. Really appreciate your analysis. Thank you very much.